Simply Financial with certified financial planner Christopher Calandra is an innovative, comprehensive, informative, and cutting-edge podcast that discusses financial topics ranging from personal finance, economics, politics, and personal growth. Simply Financial will cover intriguing and thought-provoking questions so that the listener can simply increase their financial IQ.
Welcome to episode number 10 of the Simply Financial podcast. This is Christopher Calandra. I am here with Lindy Brock. We work very closely together at Elliott Wealth Management Services. Although I am usually the host, today we have a little bit of a change because Lindy had the idea that she would host this episode, and she is going to ask me 20 questions. So Lindy, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here today and happy to ask you these questions. The reason why I wanted to do this is because so many people listen to you through the podcast and they don't probably know much about you. So I wanted to sort of start with your background and go into some funner questions so people can get to know you a little bit.
Sounds good.
Are you ready?
I'm a little nervous, but we're ready.
Okay. So I want to start with, where did you grow up?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and raised in Staten Island, which is New York City. Okay. And when I was in high school, we moved to Connecticut.
Okay. What was your childhood nickname?
My nickname, I've had a few, but the one that stuck the most is CC, just my initials. And to this day, friends of mine from high school and college will still refer to me as CC.
Did you have any nicknames given to you by your parents or any family members or anything?
No, I think with Christopher, you go by Chris unless you're in trouble and people call you Christopher. That's kind of a universal thing. But no, not from family. My middle name is James, but I was never called like CJ or anything like that. It was mostly high school, college friends that the nickname came from.
Okay. How would your best friend in high school describe you?
My best friend in high school, who I know listens to the podcast, so he'll be listening, so I ought to be truthful, otherwise he'll reach out to me. He would describe me as intelligent, sensitive, and loyal.
I would not have pegged the sensitive part.
That might be a work thing.
What was your major in college?
This might surprise people who know me business-wise as a financial planner. My 4-year degree is in English with a minor in history.
So with that background, how did you get into the financial industry? Because it does not match at all.
It's interesting, especially because my daughter is looking at colleges. When I started college, I was a finance major because I knew in high school I wanted to be on Wall Street, a financial advisor. I would not have used that term at that young age, but I knew what I wanted, which is a blessing. If you're young and you know what you want to do, it's easy to be motivated because you know what you want. If you don't know what you want, it's hard to be motivated. When I got to college, the finance classes were extremely boring, and I didn't find them interesting. I excelled at them, but I took an English class as part of the core requirements. I was just captivated by the professor, and I made the decision to change to English because it was a little bit more challenging, and it gave more of that broad education where you're dealing with different people, different backgrounds, literature, and I think becoming a little bit of a Renaissance kind of education turned out to be really valuable over time, because in the field we're in, Lindy, is it's not just what you know, but it's also how you communicate and interact with people so that they feel empowered and comfortable in working with you. And I give a lot of credit to that educational background. It was tough getting out of college, getting a job with an English degree on Wall Street.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a challenge in the short run, but it was a big, big advantage in the long run.
So I know that now they offer like a financial planning degree,
yes,
which was not offered back then.
That's true.
Would you think that you may have done that with maybe an English major if that were available then?
It's possible.
Because finance is completely different than what we
Correct. Yeah, and back in 1992, I graduated in 1992. The finance classes had nothing to do with communication, nothing to do with interacting with people, nothing to do with asking questions, anything like that that's really important in our role working with clients. So it didn't really line up exactly with what I wanted to do, but I'm not sure how the financial planning curriculum works. It probably would be more attractive to me if it was available at that time. So that's a good point.
Okay. How did you meet your wife?
Well, that probably, like a lot of people, is a funny story. I was working for an investment firm a year out of college, and we did on-campus interviews, and I interviewed her on campus. And so she was recruited and came to work for the firm, which I'm not sure was good for the firm, but it was very good for me. So we worked together and then began dating and eventually got married.
So did she have her CFP when she came with the firm?
When she came with the firm, no, but she got her CFP designation before I did.
And was that sort of what made you want to get yours?
Yes.
Okay. So she's the reason for all of your success?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
Very clearly.
When did you start Elliott Wealth Management Services?
So the name Elliott Wealth Management Services came into existence in 2010. For the majority of my career, the business name was Calandra Financial Services. Then in 2010, I entered into kind of a partnership with a property and casualty insurance agency in Southington, Connecticut, where we're based out of. That property and casualty insurance agency was Elliott Insurance Group. Elliott Insurance Group had ties to the greater Southington area tracing back to like 1892, so it was a very well-known brand name. So I wanted to adopt that brand name to help with marketing in the greater Southington area. This is before we had a presence, an office in Florida. And also I wanted to remove my name from the firm because over time I wanted to grow the firm. I wanted to add others to the team. I didn't know exactly how it would all play out, but I wanted to be able to bring in others and not have it be my firm so that someday I might have partners, I might want to sell the firm, I might have other advisors working under me. So for those reasons, Calandra Financial became Elliott Wealth Management Services.
Okay. Why did you decide to have another Elliott Wealth location in Florida?
So that was a strategic decision and one that I am very, very happy about. Connecticut is an interesting place. We've talked about this a lot, Lindy, over the years, but Connecticut is struggling economically. It is a great, great state. It's a state that was very good to my family, Joelle's parents, but it is a state that has largely fallen on harder times and is losing the economic battle. And so as an example, when you look at rankings like economic growth, business-friendly states, states that are friendly to retirees, we get awful rankings. So even though it's a great state, it has a lot of problems. And there are a lot of people that are moving out of the state of Connecticut. And the number one place that people move to when they leave the state of Connecticut is Florida. Secondly, there are lots and lots of people in Florida that have, in Connecticut that have ties to Florida, where they snowbird in Florida, they own property in Florida, they vacation in Florida, business interests, and what have you. So it was great to open up a second office in a place where my clients are often going or traveling to or have interest in. And so that's the reason that I ended up in Florida. Secondly, Florida is a great place to do business because it's the opposite of Connecticut. Florida is flourishing. It has a dynamic economy. It's growing in population. It's growing in wealth. And especially where our office is here in Summerfield, Florida, it's a part of Florida that is really strong in attracting people of all ages, not just retirees. And it's a great place because the economic backdrop is so strong. And it's really the opposite of Connecticut.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So more on that's enough on your background. So more on the personal side.
Okay.
What is your favorite place to vacation, you and your family?
Joelle grew up vacationing on the shore of Rhode Island, and so we've continued that tradition with our family. So I would say Musquamacut, Rhode Island. We were there this past summer for 2 weeks, and it is certainly my wife's happy place. And she's passed it on to our 2 children. Dominic and Marissa love Rhode Island, and so I love it too, but I especially love it because I see the 3 of them, how much joy and happiness it brings to them. So it would be Musquamacut, Rhode Island.
And you also have a lot of friends that vacation in Rhode Island also.
Yes.
What is your favorite book or author? I know that you read a lot, so this one might be hard.
Yeah, we could do a whole show just on that. So I would say, I'm going to give a couple answers. My 2 favorite books that I'll cite are number 1, Joshua by Joseph Garzone, which I read as a young man and made an enormous impression on me. And number 2, as a youth, even younger than being a young man, would be the classic Jack London's Call of the Wild. So those would be 2 books. And then in terms of authors, I have a couple of very, very influential authors. Michael Lewis, we were talking with somebody yesterday. Mm-hmm. He had come up in conversation. Michael Lewis, Tim Ferriss, Malcolm Gladwell, 3 of my absolute favorite authors. Over the last couple of years, Bill O'Reilly has put out a series of history books. It's a killing series, so it started with Killing Lincoln. Then there was Killing Kennedy, I think, was next. There's Killing Reagan, Killing Jesus. I just read Killing England. That series by Bill O'Reilly is amazing. So it's kind of an eclectic group, but that's what I would that's what I would say.
What is a food that you cannot live without?
I'm a foodie. I would go with pizza, though. I absolutely love pizza.
I completely agree.
Yes.
I love pizza. Beer, wine, or liquor?
Yes.
No preference, just yes, just...
I am very much a follower when it comes to that. If I'm in a social setting and someone orders a hard alcohol, like say vodka, I'm likely to follow and have that. If I'm with somebody and they're opening a bottle of wine, I'll have wine. It could be red or it could be white. I'll drink beer, although I drink beer less and less as time goes on. So I don't really have a drink of choice. I kind of change with the mood and
so
who
after
I'm
office
with.
one day, you go to Chili's and have dinner. You're sitting at the bar. What are you going to order?
It would be... You wouldn't really be able to know. There wouldn't be a pattern. So last night we had dinner with a business associate and I had a glass of wine. Tomorrow night I'm meeting a client and I'm likely to have beer because I know he's a beer drinker.
Gotcha.
But I could do a martini, I could do a Jack and Coke, I could do an old-fashioned. If I'm with people and they're drinking champagne, I'm likely to follow along and drink champagne. So I have a pretty wide variety of tastes.
Okay. What is a weird habit or ritual you have?
That's a wild question. I think I would answer it by saying, you know how people have ADHD, like, the stapler needs to be here? I'm not like that exactly, but in my head, I'll come up with these rules. I'll call them commitments that I need to carry out, but it's so dopey because they're meaningless except in my head. So I'll give you an example. If I were to go for a run and say I'm going to run 3 miles and I start running 3 miles, if the 3 miles ends in the middle of the street, I'll go into the middle of the street at 3 miles and then stop. Okay. I won't even cross the street, and I would never stop before the street begins because then that would be short of the 3 miles.
Gotcha.
But I make these dopey little things, and it could be exercise, it could be I'm going to read for 20 minutes, and then at 20 minutes I could be like at a random part in the book, but I said I was going to stop at 20 minutes. I won't finish the chapter, and I won't stop the chapter before. It's completely dopey. But
it means that you are